شما سلایدز یا چیزی دارید؟
نه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. لا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلی العظیم. الحمد لله رب العالمین و صلی الله علی سیدنا و نبینا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد و آله الطیبین الطاهرین لا سیما بقیة الله فی الارضین عجل الله تعالی فرجه الشریف. اللهم اخرجني من ظلمات الوهم اللهم افتح علينا ابواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we are able to continue our discussion, and as you remember, we were talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes. I already gave you an introduction to this discussion by talking about different classifications of Allah's attributes, like classifying them into attributes of beauty and glory, and attributes of essence and action. And we tried to explain with some details how we come to abstract attributes of action from a relation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his creatures. And we said because this relation has at least two sides. One side is Allah, which is not changing. The other side is a creature which is changing. Then the relation can be changing, can come in time, in space, although Allah is not limited to time and space. For example, Allah gave me today a special blessing, or rizq, or guidance. Although He has no time or space, but because of me being in this time and space, this blessing or this rizq comes today. So we can say Allah gave this today. Although today is for us, not for Him. No change in Him. We discussed this already. Now we want to continue with the discussion about attributes and see how we can argue for attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you remember, we said different arguments for existence of Allah can be used to also argue for His attributes, but some of them may be helping with all attributes, like Burhanul Wujub wal Imkan, cosmological argument. Some may help with some attributes, like argument from design helps with understanding His knowledge and power. So they depend. In the book there is a discussion first about Burhanul Wujub wal Imkan, cosmological argument. You remember we said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a necessary being. Any contingent being depends on something else. And that thing which gives existence to contingent being, if it is contingent, then we have to move on to the third thing. And finally we have to reach something that is necessary, which is uncaused cause. Okay, from that argument, what do you understand? From that argument, you understand that everything created depends on God, because everything is contingent. Everything could be and could also not be, is equal to existence and non-existence. Therefore, they depend on God. They need God. Everything they have comes from God. Please remember, it's not that we are something and then God, for example, helps us or gives us existence. We are nothing by ourselves. Everything that we have comes through our existence, and existence is given by God. So it's not that, for example, I have some qualities, but I don't exist, and Allah gives me existence. Everything that I have comes through my existence. So, if I have knowledge, if I have power, if I have will, everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, everything needs God. Can God also need anyone? No. Because if he also needed, then he would also be contingent. So he doesn't need anyone. God also is not changeable. Why? Because there are many arguments you can bring. For example, one reason why God is not changeable is because what is the meaning of change? You are going to a new condition, a new situation. Either you are losing or you are gaining. This is the meaning of change, yeah? Change is either by losing or gaining. Is possible for us to think that God is gaining or losing? Losing to whom? And gaining from whom? No one can give anything to God or take away from him anything. Even God himself cannot give anything to himself. And it's not a sign of weakness, this is a sign of strength, that even he doesn't need himself. You know, some people think that God needs himself. God creates himself. This is not right. God does not need himself, does not give existence to himself. This is misconception. Because if you say God gives existence to himself, this is a vicious circle. To give existence to himself means he must already be there while he is not there. Because you say he gives existence to himself. It means that he is there so that he gives, and he is not there because he's going to receive. This is vicious circle. This is impossible. God would not give anything to himself. I think maybe once I mentioned for you this passage from Dua Arafah. Ilahi taqaddasa ridak أن تكون له علة منك فكيف تكون له علة مني. Oh Allah, your pleasure, your reza cannot be even caused by yourself. What about me? Even you cannot cause a change in yourself. How I can cause a change? Can I make God happy? No. If I say I can God make happy or angry, it means that I have so much of power that I can influence God. It's impossible. Yes, we can say we please God or displease God as a quality of action. When my actions comply with the will of God, I said I have pleased God. But indeed, I have not changed God. I have just changed myself, and when I comply with his will, I say I pleased God. Okay? Or when I act against the will of God, I say I made God angry, or displeased, but I have not done anything to him. It's my relation with him which is changed. It's a quality of action. Anyway, because God is wajibul wujud, is necessary being, and everything needs him and depends on him, he is not receiving anything from anyone, and he has no limitation, no need. Therefore, you can realize that God is not a compound. We say murakkab, compound, means something which has parts. Because anything which is compound needs its parts. You cannot have a compound without parts. This means compound is needy. God is not needy. And also imagine, just for the sake of argument, imagine, for example, if God had 5 parts. Are those parts wajib or mumkin? If they are mumkin, then how mumkin create God? And if they are wajib, then we have not one wajib, we have many wajib. So there is no part, there is no change, there is no material, physical mass for God. God is not something that is 3-dimensional, something that occupies a space, because all these things are compound. Anything material is compound. You can divide it. Shall I say, front of it, right side, left side, top, bottom, everything you can divide if it is occupying a space, if it is material. God does not have a space. God is not also visible, because to be visible, you need a physical object, and also you need something that occupies a space. God is everywhere. And even when I say God is everywhere, it doesn't mean that He is everywhere by being in every places. He is outside a space. He is everywhere because He is outside a space. No space limits Him. No space can say, I have contained God or I have excluded God. Yeah? With us, any space in the world, like, for example, this room, can say, I have included Mr. So-and-so, or I have excluded. But no space can say this about God. They cannot say, God is in me or outside me. Okay? So, we cannot see God. God has not time also, because time is also a sign of limitation. Anything which has time, please a little bit change your understanding of time. This is a philosophical discussion. Inshallah, in philosophy, later, you study. But just quickly, our understanding of time is, we think that time is something separate, and then we have a relation with time. Because, for example, we think time is something that we measure by watch or clock, and then we have a relation with time. Today, tomorrow, this hour, next hour. This is not real time. Indeed, we are comparing ourselves with the time of sun and earth. So we have taken the relation of sun and earth and the time which is produced by the change of this relation between sun and earth by day and night as a measure for ourselves. Indeed, this is not our time, this is their time. Okay? Everything has time, must be changeable. And time is a measure of your change. Okay? Mullah Sadra very well proved that time is a dimension for physical objects, for material things, for things that are changing. Time is part of them. He proved it. So now some people say, it's the 4th dimension, whatever, but Mullah Sadra, by arguing for substantial motion, al-harakatul jawhariyah, very well demonstrated that material things go through changes, And the measure, the quantity for the changes is time. So time is part of everything which changes. And something which does not change has no time. So when we say God is eternal, we don't mean that God is very old. When we say God is eternal, means God has no time. Not that he is very old. For example, he has been there for trillions of years. No. Even if you say trillions of years, you are limiting God. Because you are making God something which is changeable, something which has time, means a measure for change. God is certainly outside time, as he is outside a space. When we say God is everywhere, we don't mean God is in every country, in every continent, in every planet. No, when we say he's in everywhere, means outside a space. And when we say every time, again means outside time. Okay? He has no past, present, or future. So, anything that would suggest limitation, restriction, weakness, need for God should be negated, should be rejected. On the other hand, anything which is a sign of perfection, God has. Because you can again argue in many different ways, but for example, one argument is this: every contingent being receives everything from wajibul wujud. So if, for example, we have ilm, we have knowledge, where does this knowledge finally come? From God, because there is no other source. If we have life, where does this life come from? If we have power, where does this power come from? If we have will, anything good that we have comes from God. But please remember, anything good that we have has a limit. The limit does not come from God. The limit comes from us. Just the good is from him, not the limit of it. Okay? So, God is, for example, absolute light. We have limited light. Means light with limitation. Light is from God, but limitation is because of our capacity. Our capacity is limited. Therefore, you cannot say, because I have limit, God also must have limit. Where does this limit come from? From God. No, this is wrong. Limit is not something. Anything which is a matter of perfection comes from God. Anything which is a matter of lacking and need and limit is from us. Because this is not something actually. This is not something existential. This is not something, a matter of perfection. Anything good comes from God. Not anything negative, anything which is restriction. Is it clear? Like, for example, we mentioned this example of water. So if you go to, like Niagara, for example, waterfall, or bigger than that, with a small container, water inside the container is from Niagara. But limit is not from Niagara. It's from your container. Limit is not something perfect. Anything which is a matter of perfection comes from the source. Anything which is limit is from us. Or from the channels which are between us and God. Not from God. Okay. So all the good things should come first from God. For example, our knowledge. We have knowledge. We, ordinary human beings, we have knowledge. Any scientist, any philosopher, any theologian, whatever knowledge they have, they are not producing it. They receive it from God. But even knowledge of the prophets, which is not conventional knowledge, that is also from God. Knowledge of the angels is from God. Any person or anything that has knowledge comes from God. But his knowledge is from himself, because there is no one to give him anything. So God is not in need of learning or studying or thinking. You have to be careful. When we say God has knowledge, you should distance any limitation of our knowledge from God's knowledge. In us, knowledge comes with studying, with learning, with thinking, with asking questions, with making mistakes, with forgetting. You know, our experience of knowledge comes from with many things. These should be left aside. Just pure knowledge is for God. But anything which is human experience of knowledge and is a matter of limitation should be left aside. In the same way is, for example, about life. God has life, we have life, but not with breathing, with drinking, with eating, with dying, with illness. So our life comes with some qualities which are because of our limitation. When we say God has life, just consider perfect life. Not life which is subject to illness or death or change or tiredness or hunger or thirst. Okay? Remove all those weaknesses. Another discussion about knowledge is that we have two types of knowledge. Knowledge which comes through concepts, and knowledge which comes by the presence of the known for the knower. Maybe today this would be our last discussion because Salat is approaching. Al-ilm al-husuli and al-ilm al-huduri. Al-ilm al-husuli means conceptual knowledge. Knowledge which comes through mind, mental images. For example, you know of some people through mental images that you have of those people. Even right now that I am seeing you, philosophers tell us that I don't have immediate knowledge of you. I have mental image of you in my mind, and that is primarily known to me. That is al-ma'lum bil-dhat, and then through that I know you. If what I have in my mind corresponds to you, then that's a true understanding. If they don't match, that this is confusion, this is mistake. Okay? Anyway, for us to know each other, for us to know anything around, is through concepts. But your understanding of yourself, you always have a kind of understanding of yourself. That is not through concepts. If you say, I am so and so, yes, that is through concepts. If you say, I exist, that is through concepts. Whenever you make a proposition, you are bringing concepts. But you have a kind of witnessing of yourself, which is not through concepts. That is called al-ilm al-huduri, knowledge by presence. Means what is known by itself is present for the knower. If you are happy, that happiness is known to you directly. It's different from seeing someone else is happy. If I see someone else is happy, it's not known to me directly. But when I am happy, and exactly at the time that I am happy, not, for example, I remember happiness yesterday. If I remember happiness yesterday, that is through mental images. But when I am happy, at this time that I am happy, that feeling, that knowledge is ilm huzuri. But if you say, I am happy, again, this is through concepts. Okay? So, sometimes we know something directly, means what is known is present to us. Sometimes we know them, actually most of the time, we know them through mental images, through concepts. For God, everything is known as al-ilm al-husuli or huzuri. Huzuri. For him, everything is known through knowledge by presence. Because God does not have mind like us. Mind is for us because we don't have capacity to know everything directly. And mind is very helpful, but also mind brings problems, mistakes, confusions, doubts. Yeah? God knows everything as ilm huduri, knowledge by presence. Because God is everywhere, in all times. Nothing is hidden from him. Nothing is absent for him. Everything is created by him. Like when you imagine, for example, a flower in your mind, your flower in your mind is known to you directly. So he has knowledge by presence of everything. Indeed, God knows us better than we know ourselves. Because there are many aspects of me that might be hidden even from me. But God has perfect knowledge of us. Inshallah, we continue this discussion, inshallah, next session. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin.
Assalamu alaikum.